Raise your hand if you've ever heard no in your freelance writing career. I definitely can raise my hand. I've heard no way more than I've ever heard yes. And sometimes the way you hear no is not right now, or basically like, hey, follow up with us in a few months, or try again later, basically. So it's totally common that we get rejected in our freelance writing career. Like, it's very normal to hear no a lot. It's very normal to hear not right now. But the way that we handle it and deal with disappointment and rejection in our business really matters to our long-term ability to bounce back in our freelance writing and create good content and find those clients that are a really good fit for us. So today, we're going to talk about how to kind of deal with that disappointment and rejection in your business. And we are going to go over some ways to deal with it, how to kind of like get through it with some strategies, and then how, a feels good folder or a good feels folder is really helpful to, making sure you have some things to remind you that, hey, like, you're good at your job. So the first thing we're going to talk about is basically how to deal with hearing no and not right now. So there's two different things. Hearing no doesn't always mean no. It sometimes means not right now. No can sometimes just mean, pitch us again. If it's a magazine, it can be like, nope, this doesn't work, pitch us again. Or no can mean like, nope, right now you're not a good fit. Maybe you need more clips, maybe you need more experience. Maybe there's something that's popped up that you feel like, I could have done better with this pitch, or I could have done better with this LOI, or better on my initial call. So there's a bunch of things that we can consider here. So when we hear no, it's like, okay, cool, like, totally get it. Maybe we're not a fit. We kind of just want to like not take it as a personal rejection that we're bad at our job, or that we suck at things, or that we'll never make it. Because hearing no in your business is very, very normal. I can tell you after a decade of freelance writing that hearing no and hearing not right now or follow up with us later, very, very common. So when you hear something like not right now, so let's say someone gets back to you on an LOI, you send an LOI to someone, letter of introduction, or you send a pitch and they're like, like, try again later, or they're like, we already covered this, like, do you have anything else? Or those are for publications where businesses are like, hey, like, we're working on our content strategy, let's talk in a few months. Like, those not right nows are how we end up getting those warm leads. That's how we end up with a bunch of clients to follow up with, and that builds over time. So not right nows are actually really great for your business. They add to your irons in the fire. They add to the people that you can follow up with. I remember when I was first freelance writing, I didn't really understand how warm leads work. I was like, how is everybody else getting these warm leads? Or how is everybody else getting these potential clients that they get to follow up with? Like, they have dozens of them, or they have like hundreds of them to follow up with throughout the year. And the key is that you're sending your marketing and you're getting people to say, not like, try again, not right now, but maybe later. That's how you add things to your warm leads. Those are people who talked back, like they came back and they sent you an email reply. They could have just ignored you, which is also very common. We often get a lot of silence in our business. But they got back to you and they were like, hey, we're working on something, like, send us some samples or follow up in a few months. Those things are really great for building our pipeline, our marketing pipeline. We now have people to follow up with, and we now have options of things that can work out later on. So not right nows are really great for following up. They're really great for filling your pipeline. They're really great for building relationships. Sometimes people need, 6 months to kind of get familiar with you and get familiar with your clips or how you can help them. So not right nows are really great for building your business. The other way that you can deal with them is, like, I always boomerang everything. Like, if you've been on this live stream at any point, I probably talked about boomeranging stuff. And this is how you easily follow up with people. So when you get a not right now, all you have to think is like, cool, now I have another iron in the fire that may work out. And then you send someone a reply, be like, totally get it, I'll follow up with you in a few months. Or you can even ask, hey, are you okay with me following up in a few months to see if we can work together on something? Or I've asked that, and I have never had people say no. And I think, like, you either get silence where someone's just like, okay, leave me alone, or you get a reply that says, like, yeah, please follow up. So the boomerang process makes it really easy for you to follow up on all your not right nows. So you end up writing a reply back, hey, can I follow up? And then they reply back or whatever. They say yes or they ignore you or whatever. Then you just go into Boomerang. It's just Boomerang for Gmail. It's a little Chrome browser extension. And you just Boomerang the message, right? You say, basically snooze the message until 3 months out. And then Boomerang puts it back in your inbox 3 months later so you can follow up with them. And the more you get to do that, the more you're filling your marketing pipeline, which means that you have to do less big pushes of active marketing and more following up. So the following up is people who've already gotten back to you. And it's, there's a common phrase that's like, it's easier to like nurture someone than to find everybody else through cold leads, right? So it's a lot easier to just keep following up with someone who you already have their email, they've already responded, they've already maybe given you an example of like, hey, we're thinking about blog posts or we're thinking about this part of our content strategy, try again later. It's a lot easier to follow up with not right nows through Boomerang rather than having to keep building a list of people to reach out to and keep finding prospects and keep reaching out cold. So when you hear no, that doesn't mean that it's no forever. It could just be no to this pitch or no to this thing that you sent that like just isn't a fit for them. You can always try again. And then your not right nows are your options to just, okay, cool, like you got back to me, now you're in the warm leads category, we'll follow up with you later. So that's kind of how to handle the no's and the not right nows on a general overarching level. And then like let's talk about how to bounce back when you're disappointed. So I have been disappointed many times in my career. Like it's not uncommon for freelance writers to be disappointed. You send your first pitch to a big magazine and you're like, oh, maybe it'll work out. And then you just hear nothing. Or you end up getting a project and you're like, this project's going to make a big deal for my business. I'm going to get all of these clips. I'm going to work with this top client and it's a long-term contract. And after like a month or two, it just melts and falls apart. And they're like, nope, we need to cancel the contract. We're going in a different direction. Or, and you just feel devastated. Or you launch something or you put something out into the world, you're like, this is going to be great. I'm adding this thing. Like I have a few freelance writer friends who started podcasts and, you launch that thing and you're like, nobody's listening or nobody's subscribing or, it just feels really disappointing because you feel like more people should be tuning in. You're like, hey guys, this is really great. And that's normal. It's normal for us to feel disappointed. It's normal for us to end up getting a lot of things in our mind where we feel like, hey, this is really going to work out. This is going to be great. And then you're like, man, I'm disappointed. So I just kind of want to put a little reminder here that being disappointed is kind of part of it, right? Being disappointed is part of being a human, number one. And number two, it's part of being a writer. It's part of the process. Like you can't come back from you can't overcome all your obstacles if you don't have disappointment. Like you can't get through all your roadblocks if you didn't end up in disappointment at some point somewhere. So when you're feeling disappointed, like whether you you tried really hard in your business and you're like, what, I have to go back to my full-time job. Like I had 6 months of savings, I'm out of money, I don't know what to do. Like whether you're disappointed about that or you're disappointed about like the trajectory of your career, things are going differently. Like I've been open in my email newsletters that this year has gone way differently for me than I thought. And I've been, transparent about like how I felt really disappointed. Like the end of my last year was really good. Like I had a really good end of last year despite all the things that were going on with the pandemic. And this year has just been a roller coaster. This year has been way harder for me than last year. And that made me feel disappointed. I was like, okay, like I got through, 2020. We're going to do it for 2021. And then I'm like, oh no. And it really got to me. And disappointment is part of it. It's part of, it's part of the rejection. It's part of the no's. It's part of when you send an editor an article or you send a business something that you worked on for them and they're like, nope, you missed the mark. This is terrible. Like, no. And that's really disappointing. You're like, I worked really hard. I thought I, asked you all the right questions to make sure that, that I was getting all of this stuff in order. And when you get that rejection where they're like, nope, you missed the mark, like, oh, you can feel really disappointed in yourself. Hey, Jenny, welcome in. Yes, I just want to pop this up. I think this is good. Hey, Jenny. So she says, so true. And fear of rejection can hold us back so much, at least in my experience. Totally true, Jenny. Fear of rejection is like something I used to be really scared about. I used to be like so fearful that people were going to say no, or that I was bothering them or being annoying, or that whatever I was doing, like the rejection was like me personally, not the idea, not what I was pitching, not the project or whatever I wrote that they were like, nope, you missed the mark. I used to be like, oh my God, I'm so terrible. I'm a horrible person. And man, that fear of rejection, I think what really helped me, and I hope this kind of helps others, is like, you have to kind of normalize the rejection. This is normal as a freelance writer. When you're putting yourself out there, when you're putting your work out into the world, and you're saying like, hey, here's my idea, what do you think? Or here's the piece I wrote, what do you think? What are the changes or edits you need? Like, you're asking for feedback, and sometimes that feedback can be really harsh, and sometimes that feedback is just outright rejection. And we kind of have to normalize that a bit. We have to kind of build up our little bricks, like build up our little bricks of like, hey, we can do this. Like we can build the foundation of our business, and yeah, we're going to get, a few bricks are going to fall out, or we're going to realize there's a weak foundation somewhere, or that we made a mistake, but that's normal. That's totally going to happen. So when we're bouncing back from disappointment, which, if you get stuck in disappointment island, like, which is where I was for a while, you eventually kind of have to regroup. You can stay on disappointment island for a little while, but eventually that plane is going to fly by that's like, hey, do you need a ride? Like, ride back to, Happy Town, basically. And you're like, yeah, I think I need to do that. So when that plane comes by and you're like, I need to deal with this disappointment, I need to move forward, that's where we end up having that feels good folder. So one of the things that really helps me kind of get back in the groove and deal with disappointment is reading emails that writers have sent me saying like, oh my gosh, this helped me so much. I ended up doing X, Y, and Z, or I raised my prices this way, or I went back to the client and said this and it worked out, or I need, please help me with this pitch. And like, they ended up getting a job with it, or they end up getting like immediate responses from like top magazines. Like, I have a coaching student who like sent some pitches and she immediately got responses from the New York Times parenting section and parents. So I was really proud of her for that. And you have to keep these things in a folder. Like, I read testimonials, or I read like testimonials from both my clients and my coaching students. I read all of these things. I put them in a group. Like, I read through them when I feel like I'm not doing a good job, or I've been hit with a lot of disappointment recently. And that feels good folder, or you can call it a good feels folder. I kind of interchange them. But if you have that good feels folder, that means that you can go back and remind yourself like, hey, I am good at my job. I did good things. People really benefited from this. Like, if you have a testimonial from a top-notch client talking, like raving about how great you are, that's a really big deal. That's a really big deal. Remind yourself of that when you're stuck on disappointment island. Like, it's really easy to just live on disappointment island. Like, I lived there for a long time. I temporarily stayed on like a staycation this year, but I lived there for a long time where I was just like, I'm never going to do this, and this is horrible, and all this stuff. But eventually you kind of have to work through those roadblocks. You got to remind yourself of all the things you're good at, all the skills that you have that other people may not have, what makes you unique as a writer, the clients that you've helped, or the coaching students that you've helped, or just other writers that you've helped in different communities. You have to remind yourself of all the good that you've done in the world and all the good that you're going to do in the future. I feel like those pieces, kind of remembering like what's possible, what you've done, how you can improve, or ways that you can kind of like regroup and be like, all right, let's refocus and edit this piece. Whatever I did, it wasn't right. That really sucks. I cried a lot about it, but all right, let's regroup here, do our edits, and send the editor what they want. Because at the end of the day, your piece or your content strategy or whatever work that you've turned in has to match what the client is going for. Otherwise, it's useless. So we have to kind of regroup and be like, all right, I can do this. Like, they gave me feedback. They said, this is messed up, fix this thing here, this sentence sucks, this word is weird, all this stuff. Like, or maybe sometimes you end up saying something that ends up sounding weirdly sexual or like weirdly uncomfortable for some reason, and you didn't read it, like you didn't notice it on your read-throughs because in your mind it made sense. And these are mistakes I've made. Let's just like put that out there. By accident, you say something and it sounds really weird and you just don't notice it in your mind. So it's normal. It's normal. But we have to get through it. We have to work through it, regroup, make those edits, make those changes, and give them a piece that really works. Give them the strategy that works. And I think that's another little feather in your cap, right? If you can get disappointed, live on disappointment island, and then kind of bounce back, right? You end up taking in the feedback, dealing with the roadblocks, dealing with the mistakes you made, and then you give them something they really love. You give your coaching student, like, they're like, that's not, I need something else, or your client's like, ooh, like, try again. When you give them something that really works for them, that's a big feather. You bounced back from all that disappointment, all that crap, all those hard edits, all that time that you spent building it the first time, rebuilding it or like incorporating the edits and rebuilding it a second time, right? You bounce back, that's a big deal. Put that in your good feels folder. Hey, I did all these edits. Like, I might have screwed this piece up the first time, but man, the second round, boom, I nailed it. And that's kind of normal, right? We have to normalize that too, right? So put that in your good feels folder and normalize the fact that, like, writing is a process. You're going to sometimes turn in something where, like, in your mind, it makes sense. In your mind, you're like, I totally nailed it. And then in your client's mind, you're like, no, we are on 2 different highways in 2 different states, driving opposite directions. We've missed the boat. We're on the wrong thing. And the point is to, like, regroup, figure that out, put it in your good feels folder that you figured it out, and that you're, like, when your client sends you an email saying, hey, great job on this second draft, boom, save that for later. Because remind yourself, you can come back from disappointment. You can regroup. You can make changes. And I've been talking a lot about work, but there's things in your business too, right? Like, you send a lot of marketing and you hear nothing. Or you end up building a new piece out of your business, like you end up doing a product, or you end up doing more coaching, or you end up adding more marketing consultation services or something, and it just isn't working out. Like, we can still bounce back from that. So the next thing I want to talk about, if you guys have questions, if anybody in the chat has questions, you can pop them in the chat. Oh, we haven't done a pup date. Before I get to the last thing, we should do a pup date. All right. They're sleeping over there. Oh, let's see if we can get Charlotte on camera. There she is. You guys want some Treatos? She just popped right up. Good job. Barry, you awake? Do you want some Treatos? There you go. Good job, buddy. All right. There you go. You guys are the cutest. There you go. How you doing? Are you having a great day? You have a hair in your nose. Oh, okay. There you go. All right, we did a little pup date. I forgot. All right, now that you're sitting up, maybe we can put Bear in the frame. There we go. They just know that word Treato. Oh, I said it again. I shouldn't have said it. Charlotte, do you want a Treato? She's got, like, the little head tilt. She's like, yes, please, Treato. Thank you. Bo, would you like Treato? He's like, yes, thank you. Good job, buddy. Good job, guys. You're cute and adorable. And you know what, guys? If you're dealing with disappointment and you have pets or dogs, there is nothing that makes you feel better than hugging your dog. I can tell you that from experience. When you're sitting on the floor crying about all the rejections and no's you've gotten, nothing feels better than hugging your dog, especially when your dog hates it when you hug them, so you want to hug them even harder, which is my problem, because Charlotte hates being hugged. Bo loves being hugged. So if I go hug Charlotte, she tries to get away, I just hug her harder because I love her and she should know that. So, okay, last thing we're going to go through here. If you guys have questions, pop them in the chat. If you feel like this has been helpful so far, feel free to give it a thumbs up, and feel free to subscribe below for more tips about how to make freelance writing work for you. So, strategies. Strategies to move forward even when it's hard. Let's preface this with, things are hard. Things are hard. No matter where you are in the spectrum, no matter how much money or how many clients people have, I've talked to freelance writers who make $0, who basically are just starting out, to people who make over $250,000, okay? And I had a friend who she just had a 100K quarter, okay? And that amazed me, and I'm super proud of her. You know who you are. Good job. So no matter where you are on the spectrum, it's going to be hard, because you have to go through different phases of your business. Every time you change a phase of your business, things are hard. Sometimes what happens is you don't get paid on time. Sometimes the hard part is, like, you're starting this new scary journey of changing the focus of your business. Maybe instead of doing one-off content, you want to do retainers. Maybe you want to move more into consulting and doing high-level strategy rather than doing pieces for people. Maybe you want to move into a totally different type of writing that's more like messaging and positioning, or you want to do more just consulting on SEO, like you build things out from the back end, like the technical back end, rather than just saying like, yes, keywords and other stuff, I'll add that in. All that stuff is hard. It is hard to change phases of your business. That's normal to feel disappointed that like, oh man, this is harder than I thought. It's normal to feel disappointed that you didn't get there as fast as you thought. It's normal to feel disappointed that the transition isn't as bright and shiny and grass is greener than you thought. It's okay to feel like it's really difficult, because it is. No matter where you are on the spectrum, things can be really hard. There are things that will come easily to you because that's your personality and that's the things that make sense to you, and there are things that will be really hard. Like, that's normal. It's gonna happen. It's hard to build a business. We are small business owners as freelance writers, and it's really hard to build a business, and it's really hard to put yourself out there, and it's really hard to change the directions of your business. It's really hard to get to a new level. It's really hard to get more money. It's really hard to get new clients. Like, there's a lot of hard pieces in here. It's always worth it, right? We always kind of look back and we're like, oh, all of that horrible stuff that I thought was really bad was really worth it. I'm really glad it turned out this way. I can tell you this from my own experience. Like, I've had so many things over the last 10 years where I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible. And then like the next day, I'm just like, oh, or like a week later, I'm like, oh no, this is way better than I thought. Like, why was I so upset, right? But at the time, it felt really hard. It felt really difficult. So when we're moving forward, remind yourself, like I always try to remind myself that tomorrow can be a better day. Every day we can restart. Every day we can wake up and be like, okay, self, let's start over today. Every day we get to wake up is like, we're kind of lucky, right? Like I talk about this every time a birthday comes up, like my own birthday or my significant other's birthday, which is soon. Every year the herd is thinning. So every year, the year that you were born, that herd is thinning from the second that you're born. People don't live, unfortunately, babies die. I don't know how I went there, but anyways, like every year there are people dying. They don't get to be the age that you are. So every year you have a birthday, and every day that you get to wake up, somebody else didn't wake up today. Somebody else didn't get to that birthday. And as morbid and sad as it is, like, man, every day you can start over. Every day you can be like, I woke up today. I get to start over. Yeah, yesterday sucked. Yesterday was horrible. Now I can move forward. So I always try to keep that in mind, is like tomorrow can be a better day. The next month can be better. The future can be better. And yeah, like sometimes it's a little Pollyanna where, I put on my rose-colored glasses and I'm like, oh, the future, like 4 years from now, everything will be great. Yeah, but sometimes I need that amount of like positivity to get me to take action. Sometimes I need like as heavy a dose of the disappointment and the rejection and the hard stuff. I need a heavy dose of positivity to get me out. So when you're thinking about that, like every day can be better. Every day you can make a difference. Every day you can build something new. Every day that you get to wake up and do the cool stuff that you get to do, right? We got into freelance writing for a reason, to do all this cool stuff that we want to do, to write for clients that we like, to get pieces out there that make a difference for people, to teach people stuff, to help other people grow their business. We got into writing for a lot of different reasons. And yeah, it's hard. But when you're moving forward, just know that every day you can start over. So that's one thing. And I want to put what Jenny said up here. So she said, I'm glad I'm not the only one who thinks it can be hard. Yeah, Jenny, I can tell you that I, for the longest time, thought I was the only one who thought it was hard. I had a bunch of friends around me who, they are just like growing their business. And I was like, how is this happening? Like, what do I do? And I was like, oh, I know. I'll just build the same business that they are. And it blew up in my face and it was a disaster. Like, don't do that. But I want to kind of like normalize that for people. Like, I spent a lot of time feeling alone and being lonely as a freelance writer because like I felt like I was the only one who was really struggling. But lots of freelance writers are struggling. Lots of people think it's really hard. It's normal that it's hard. We're trying to do all these hard things. We're trying to get ourselves out there, build a business, do quality writing, help other people build their businesses, make sure our content teaches people and helps people. Like, there's a lot of different factors in there. So don't feel alone. There are a lot of writers. Like, I can tell you, there are a lot of writers that I talk to. I've talked to thousands of writers over the years. like everybody has a hard point in their business. It may not come early, it may come later on, but there's a hard point. Okay, so we only have a few more minutes. So you guys have questions, you put them in the chat. Okay, strategies. So we're moving forward. So tomorrow can be a better day. That's one thing. Strategies for moving forward. Remember, we got to go back to the good feels folder. We got to look through it and remember that we're good at our job. The next strategy for moving forward is that you have to start recognizing your own personal roadblocks. You can make a list, or you can journal, or have something that you have like in your notes app on your computer, but you have to know what your roadblocks are, because when things get hard, they're hard uniquely for you. You can't just go to somebody else and say like, why is this so hard for me? Like, they can't answer that for you. Like, I'm sure they can give you some advice. I'm sure they can give you some steps, but it's uniquely hard for you because you have your own personal roadblocks. Maybe you have very low self-confidence. Maybe you're really worried about your writing skills. Maybe you're really scared. You have that fear of putting yourself out there. You have fear of failure. You have fear of success. You have all these different roadblocks. Maybe you have mental health stuff, like I have anxiety. I have to deal with that. That's one of the roadblocks for me, is like I get real wrapped up real quick sometimes with my anxiety. And I know writers who have depression, and that puts them out for a while. Like, that's part of the hardness. They have to deal with that. They have to handle it, as best they can and move forward. So you have to know what your own personal issues are and your own personal roadblocks. I think that that's a long-winded process. Like, it has taken me years to just get to this point where I know the places where I get tripped up, and I'm like, oh, I can kind of like be aware and identify them better. I still don't know all of them, but I think it's a process. And once you start kind of realizing them and writing them down, you physically say like, I notice that when I get rejected, I get really anxious about the future. I notice that when someone tells me no, I start thinking that they're rejecting me personally, or they think I'm a bad writer, or that my samples suck. I'm noticing that when I feel disappointed, I feel like immediately giving up. I don't feel like getting back in the ring and throwing a few punches. I'm just like, nope, this isn't right for me. I should give up. You have to know your own personal things that get in your way, because that's how you solve them. Like, if anything I've learned, like, awareness is key. You have to know what you're up against to get over it, right? You can't just magically keep going through life and be like, wow, things are hard. Okay, well, I guess this is not working. Like, no. You have to be aware of what's holding you back. You have to be aware of the things that are like, basically, I always kind of imagine it as like this fuzzy screen. Like, you're trying to look out a window, but it's like so blurry because there's like a fuzzy screen in front of you. It's like that. What's your fuzzy screen? Like, it could be, those like frosted windows at a cafe or whatever. It's like that. You're like looking out there and you're like, I see people moving and I see what I'm assuming are cars and stuff, but like, I don't really know what's going on. It's like that. What is your kind of like frosted window? What are the things that are holding you back? What are the things that you think when these things happen, right? What are the thoughts that come in your mind when you get a no, or when you get a not right now, or when someone says, this sucked, please try again, or when you get really harsh edits? Like, I'm sure that I'm not the only one who has gotten a piece back where you're like, oh no, and you had to spend the next 3 days rebuilding it from scratch, rewriting the whole thing, crying a lot, eating a lot of chips. Like, you get it and by chips I mean both potato chips and chocolate chips, so we have to combine them, otherwise we can't solve our problems. So, I'm not the only one who's dealt with that, right? And but I know that, like, I know when I start getting all these things, like, I write them down, or I notice them, or I become aware. So you have to know your own personal roadblocks. So when you're moving forward through all the hard stuff, know that it's hard, know that tomorrow can be a better day, and know that you have to become aware of the things that will hold you back. Maybe it's a mindset that you've had since you were small. Maybe it's something that you just get really triggered by someone saying a certain word, or I don't know. Like, there's different things for everybody. But remember, that frosted glass, like, keeps you from getting to your kind of future that's on the other side, right? Like, imagine those cafes where, like, there's only a stripe of frosted glass, right? Like, you go to those like fancy Starbucks in a city where it's like the bottom half is clear and then there's like a frosted stripe and the top is clear. It's like that. All you have to do is stand up and be like, oh, now I can see outside. Like, now I know what's going on, and now I can kind of move through it. I know what's holding me back. So these are the kinds of things that we use to get over disappointment and rejection. Is like, we have to solve our own unique issues, and we have to fix our mindset. We have to think about, you know what, it's just terrible now. It's not going to be terrible for forever, right? Even the worst situations won't be terrible forever. There will be good parts in those terrible situations. Like, I'm sure I'm not alone being the person who has gone from like really crying hard to like laughing hysterically, right? Like, you go from like, oh my God, and then you're like, oh my God, that what I did was so funny. Like, maybe we can just laugh at it instead of crying about it and kind of move forward. So any other questions, you drop them in the chat. If you feel like this has been helpful so far, if you feel like you know, you want to learn more about freelance writing, make sure to hit subscribe, hit the little thumbs up. I'll give you guys Pup Date because they went back to sleep. So we'll see what they're doing over there. Oh, there they are. All right, you guys want a Trito? You guys are like, yes, please, Trito. You want a Trito? Oh my gosh, look at you. You're so cute. Good job, guys. You're the cutest. All right. Bo's like, please, okay, one more, Bo, because you look super cute. You look super cute. Just for you. And one more for you, because you're also cute. All right. So if you guys ever have questions, if you're watching this video and you're like, I have a question about what you just said, or what you said was really confusing, make sure to just drop a comment below. I always make sure to get back to comments. And I think we're gonna end it there. So I hope this was helpful. I know it can be a tough topic. It can be a heavy topic sometimes when you're trying to deal with a lot of hard things in your business, but man, everybody has hard things. The hard things are just different for everybody, and working through them, having your good feels folder to remind you that you're good at your job and you've done good things and you've helped people really is important. And normalizing the hard parts, like saying like, I know there will be hard parts, this is just one of them, and then normalizing the fact that you're going to hear a lot of no's and not right now's, I think is really helpful to kind of build in your freelance writing business. So hope that was helpful. Hope you guys have a good weekend. It's been really rainy here, so I hope it's nice and sunny where you are. And I will see you guys next week at 12 p.m. Central. Bye.